Welcome, everybody, to episode 3 of the Open Bar for Content Creators podcast. I'm your host, Marco Flores from Nerd in the Bay. We're at episode 3, still going off to a great start. I had a little bit of feedback from the last episode because there was the lighting was too low. And I'm a really darker person, so I had to open up the window to get some lighting inside the room. And I have a little bit of a guest that is sleeping right there. It's a dog named Zeus. He's sleeping right now. But anyways, today I have my guest. He's from the channel Vacation Impossible. His name is Ray. Ray, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's the last day of my vacation, and we were able to set this up. So speaking of vacation, I like a little segue.
Nice. Well done.
It just popped in my head. I was like, okay, just go for it. So like I said, your channel is about vacations and vacationing and stuff like that. Tell us what your channel is about.
Yeah, basically we travel all over North America and Europe, and we try to show people, we sort of have 3 goals. We want to inspire people to travel more. We want to show them how they can do it more cheaply to save money. And we want to show them some of the more unusual things they might have not thought of doing or might not known about before going on a trip. And so those are sort of the 3 different goals that we're shooting for.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, vacationing cheaper is definitely in a wheelhouse that we're always trying to make sure we get the most bang for our buck when it comes to doing vacations. When you created your channel, what was the inspiration for doing that? Just you had a channel, and then what made you decide vacationing would be the thing that you would be covering?
Well, actually, I kind of went backwards. I've actually been filming since 2001.
Wow. Okay, that's wow.
Yeah, we're old school. We used to shoot with a handy cam that had a Hi8 tape in it, and then I would have to encode it with a capture card. I had to capture the video separate from the audio and then sync it up because the processor wasn't strong enough to do both at the same time.
That must have been fun.
Oh yeah, our first trip, our first season of episodes, the resolution was 144 pixels high on the encode.
Okay.
So we basically our origin story, to put it in superhero terms, is that I grew up in poverty, and so did many of my friends. And so in order to break the cycle of poverty, we all had education. So we went to university, got degrees, and then we started getting jobs that started to give us some decent wages. And so we started having disposable income of a decent amount for the first time in our lives. And many of us had not really traveled at all. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to see the world. And my friends thought that was sort of a frivolous expense. They weren't used to spending money on things like that. They were like, that doesn't seem practical. And so my goal was to try and show them through film how much fun it could be, to try and convince them to come on the next vacation with me. That's where it really all began. I was trying to convince my friends to spend some money on a vacation. That's really all it was. And so back then, it's 2001. I did that encoding stuff. I was sharing it over ICQ, MSN Messenger. I was hosting videos on GeoCities. And it was a game of whack-a-mole because the bandwidth on GeoCities was really limited. So I'd have to re-upload it to a different domain, every 5 years or something like that. I was encoding it in Real Media Player, which probably no one even knows what it is anymore, so I could get the file size down as small as possible. So and then and then YouTube came along, and I was like, oh, here's a place where I can put them more easily. And so it's kind of evolved from there. But that's sort of where it began. In terms of our inspiration, people often ask what YouTuber or whoever inspired you. Because we're so old school, it wasn't really a YouTuber. Back in the day, there was a reality TV series on the web. It was one of the first web shows ever, and it was called D Life. So it was a lowercase d period and then lowercase life. And it was about these 2 guys and a girl that were roommates, and that they would do all this different kind of traveling. So they went to Calgary and got in a bar fight, and a friend of theirs who was a DJ got imprisoned in North Korea. So they went to North Korea to try and help him get out. And I'm watching this stuff, and I was blown away. I think it was hosted on a website called heavy.com, which is the beginning of 2.0. Now I think they're all about wrestling and stuff, but they used to be about well-produced video content before there was a YouTube. And I used to watch that stuff there, and it blew my mind. And I'm like, okay, I'm not getting into bar fights. I'm not going to North Korea. But who's going to show them the places that I do go? Who's going to show the world the road trip to Edmonton?
Yeah.
That no one else is doing.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if I had to point to something as inspiration, it was probably that. They later got bought by ABC. And so all the videos disappeared off heavy.com and moved over to ABC. They were there for like a year, and then they got scrubbed from the internet. You can't find them anymore. They're just gone.
Yeah.
So it's that's our crazy origin story. It's a different one.
That's an awesome origin story too. So like when it comes to your videos and like process of creation, you're not as like in terms of like throwing out videos, it's not as active as other YouTubers that are throwing out content like every single day. You may have like a good like big recording of videos and then you cut it to smaller pieces. But your process in terms of like throwing out content is not as active as other YouTubers, huh? It's just only when you're able to go on a vacation, and then or unless you're talking about something else that is either kind of related to that or something separate of that. Like, how active is your like uploading in terms of like throwing out content for your channel?
Yeah, we're a mess. I own that.
It's okay.
We don't have a content schedule. And part of it is, ironically, it's not that we can't travel enough. We've gotten to the point where, if I can sound immodest for a second, we've gotten so good at it. Like in 2016, for example, I went on 6 cruises. That means I went on a cruise every other month. Wow. So creating content was really not the problem. The challenge I've had is finding the time to sit down and edit it all. And so we're often having a backlog of anywhere from 3 to 18 months of footage that I still haven't had the time to sit down and go through and edit. So that, if anything, the backlog is really me making the time to edit. I guess it was maybe a year and a half ago now, we started a podcast. And it actually kind of had a funny beginning because it's the Vacation Impossible podcast. Gotta get the plug in. There you go. And it was funny because it was April Fool's Day was coming up. And, I have a little bit of fun with that. And so I had announced that, I was going to be starting a podcast as a joke on my Facebook page for my channel. Yeah. And the response was disturbingly positive. And so then the rules of April Fool's Day is that once it's noon, you tell people what it was. So that, and so noon comes along and I comment on the post. And I say, haha, and I edit the post to say April Fool's and everything like that. People were pissed.
Like, no, man, you got to throw this out now because we're expecting it.
Yeah. And so it was like, I don't know, it was like a week later or something. We were having people over at my house for like a board game night. We were going to be playing Pandemic or some other thing. And they sat me down and it was like an intervention. They were like, no, Ray, you need to do this. You have to do this. Yeah. And it was flattering and a little scary. Yeah. And so I said, okay, if I'm going to do it, what's going to make it a little bit different? Because everyone needs sort of their unique personality on their podcast. It has to be more than just them. And so, for example, on yours, you're interviewing content creators, and that's sort of your focus. Obviously, we'd be talking about vacations, but there's a lot of, unlike content creator podcasts, there's a lot of travel podcasts. So how are we going to be different? So the idea I came up with is we only film on location. So it has to be on a cruise ship, in a hotel,
that's when you're doing it there.
Yeah, we do it on site. So it's a little bit different. And it's good and bad in the sense that, like, if we're on a cruise ship, we don't have access to the internet. So we can't be fact checking ourselves in real time. If the conversation strays into an area and we get something drastically wrong, when I'm editing it, I need to make a choice. Do I cut it out? Or how do I what do I do with that? Because we don't want to give false information. Right. But it's also great because we're in the middle of a trip. So we're talking about the things that just happened. The memories are fresh. The questions are problems. And hopefully it provides different backdrops. The image quality varies. Like if we're in a hotel and there's not a lot of lights in the room that we're recording in, that's kind of hard. Yeah. So the image quality, I think, suffers, but by and large, it's working well. But of course, that means the podcast also comes out inconsistently as well.
That's okay. I mean, as long as you have the idea and then people are wanting it, I think they'll just be waiting for it to come out, no matter how long of the space of time that you put out the podcast. I do like the idea that, like when I was going through your videos recently, that you also break it down. Like I mentioned before, that you break it down into like mini videos in terms of like the topic. Like I think the one I saw was like video games that you can bring to a trip or a cruise. Like it's not so much that it has to be like heavy involved like RPG adventure games, but like something you can just like play and go sort of thing. So like I do like that you have like within your podcast that you have like mini clips of like, just sections of your podcast also in video form that, is like, if somebody wants to know about this certain part of like the trip or some tips that you want to like share, they can just watch that, and that's that. They can leave that alone. And then on the other side is they can also like watch or listen to your podcast as a whole as well. So I do like that. Did you do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I stole the idea from Pat Contry because I'm a big fan of the CU podcast.
Yeah,
and I saw that like the full length audio version is available, and then I take and again I try to impose little rules to make us a little bit different. For example, like there's a lot of television shows I really like, and one of the things that often happens on a television show is they run over budget, and they have to do something called a bottle show where they can't get guest stars, they can't go on location, but they still have to fill like an hour of television. I often find those shows are some of the best, and it's because they have to be creative because they're working within limited rules. And so I impose some rules on us as well, and hopefully it sparks that necessary creativity. And so the podcast is a full length, and they can listen to that at any time. And then I try to find no more than 9 snippets from each podcast to put on YouTube. And part of the reasoning for that also is that it's great if you're watching the YouTube stuff, but you're never going to get the full content unless you also listen to the podcast. So I'm kind of giving them a little hook, a little reason. Hopefully go subscribe to the audio podcast as well. Yeah.
There you go. That's cool. That's awesome. I like that strategy. I think I did a little bit of that on previous podcasts as well. I'll see if I can try to fit that in. I think as creators, we do that in some form or fashion. Like not so much of take the exact same idea as this person did, but like we like that like idea so much that we want to draw from it, and then but kind of make it our own interpretation of it. That's the thing I like about in terms of all content creators. Like I'm guilty of it. You just mentioned that you were doing some of that. I know, so like I kind of want to like go towards the thing that you also have a role in, which is also Facebook, YouTube groups, and like you've been a lot more busy in terms of these groups because I don't know, I see your name, like I know that you're approving the posts, but I just see your name a lot. Like as for me personally, as a member of like the Facebook group, I am appreciative of how active you are and how you're trying to like nip things in the bud and just be, hey, these are the rules. If they look like they're enforcing the rules, and that's okay. And if I like how actively policing that you are in these groups. But something that I mentioned in the advice in the last episode is about YouTube Facebook groups. And can you give us like a little bit of a description of what that exactly is when people that are not familiar with these type of groups that are actually that are content creators trying to find their way into just growing their own channel and that sort of thing?
Yeah, sure thing. Actually, just before I answer that, I should probably give a shout out to your previous guest, Master Moo, who I'm actually wearing his T-shirt right now.
Oh, there you go. Shout out to Master Moo. There you go.
I forgot to mention that at the top. I thought it would be nice to tie the two podcasts together.
That is awesome.
He's a great guy, so I just want to get that plug in there for him. I watched that podcast. It was start to finish. It was fantastic. Awesome. And yeah, you did mention Facebook groups, and so I was like, oh, cool. Maybe I'll get to talk about that. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I mean, just thinking about origin stories, basically it was like November 2016. I had been doing YouTube for all this time, and it was just for me and my friends and family for the most part. And I just decided, I don't know what prompted it, but I decided, you know what? I'm tired of not being a success on YouTube. I actually said it out loud. It sounded totally egotistical.
I mean,
and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start taking this seriously. I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to see what's possible. Maybe I can make a shot of it. I don't know. And so one of the early ideas I had was, okay, well, maybe there's some people on Facebook, some Facebook groups I could search out. So I went searching around and I joined a lot of groups, and some of them were fantastic and some of them were not. So like I joined, like I'm based in Vancouver, Canada. And so I joined like a Canadian YouTubers group that consisted basically of 2 people constantly complaining that Canadian YouTubers didn't support each other. And I was like, okay, that's super negative and there's no information here. That's not for me. I left that group. I joined another group that had these Byzantine rules that were so, like there was 12 rules, and they limited the group to never having more than 500 members. You could only post on Fridays. On, like every day of the week, there was different sets of rules, and I was constantly bumping up against them because they weren't written very clearly, and I didn't fully understand. I was trying my best to follow those rules, and it was just a struggle. And so I had joined Small YouTubers Boost in December of 2016. It had just been created like a week earlier or something.
So you're basically in the beginning of it, pretty much.
Yeah, it was created by a woman named Alexis.
Mhm.
And so I had been in the group, and then it was around April of 2017 that she was having a backlog of member approvals and post approvals, and she was asking for somebody who wanted to volunteer to be a moderator. So I volunteered, and she said yes. And Alexis was great in creating the group because it only had 4 rules. And so I think that's the magic of small YouTubers Boost. There are small enough number of rules that are hopefully clearly written and easy to follow, that make the group work. And I think that was genius of her. And so, but the thing was, is when I was a moderator, she was very busy with her personal life, and so she wasn't there to give me any direction about how do I moderate. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, you know what? All I do know is these 4 rules. So all I'm going to do is enforce these 4 rules. If it's against one of these 4 rules, I'll stop it and take action. But if it's not, whether I like it or not, I'm just going to let it flow.
Yeah.
And so I did that for months, and eventually her channel, her other group that she was managing got busier, and so she decided to hand the group over to me because I was the most active moderator. And so that's sort of how I came to be the administrator of that group. And so then it was like, oh, okay, well, I'm in charge. And, I started having to get more moderators as well because the group was exploding. In April of 2017, we had like 1,400 members.
Yeah.
And then by like June, we had 15,000.
Wow.
It is loaded.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was great. I thought maybe it was my moderating that helped. Maybe it was the 4 rules. Maybe it's just a wonderful community. Whatever the reason, we had something that seemed to be special.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to screw it up when I was put in charge of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I just kept doing the same thing because this is what brought us to this point. So I just kept saying, it's just about these 4 simple rules. And it started growing to the point where I had to bring on new moderators. And as wonderful as Alexis was, I didn't appreciate being given this responsibility without any direction. So I bring on new moderators and they say, well, what do I need to know? And so I actually fell back to something from my education. I have a political science degree, and I read this article by a guy named Lon Fuller years ago. Bear with me here. It gets interesting, I swear.
Okay, go for it.
And it's basically 8 ways to make bad law. So you don't tell anyone about the law. You constantly change the law. You make the law difficult to understand, things like that. So basically, I have every moderator go and read that tiny little 1.5-page article and say, this is what we're about. We're about clear rules that applied consistently. But that means sometimes we have to approve things that we hate. And it means sometimes we have to reject things that we love but might break a rule.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes total sense, actually.
Yeah, and so we have to be traffic cops. And the beauty of that is that hopefully people don't blame us for these decisions because we're just enforcing rules. It's not about our taste. It's not about our personality. It's not about we don't like you. It's about that. And that's hard to explain for some people because they get upset if their post didn't get approved or something.
Yeah. I mean, if it gets personal, then that's a whole other issue.
Yeah. And so, sometimes you're able to hopefully explain it and they turn around, they get it, and then they become more active and they get more out of the group too. And some people just flame out and swear at you and then you have to block them. And that's,
that's what it is.
Yeah. And it's tedious, but it's all part of the thing.
Yeah.
So what are the strengths of these Facebook groups? I think that there are 2 different ways you can look at Facebook groups. One is maybe I want views. I want an audience. I want to build a community. I want subscribers. If that's what you're looking for, you need to find a group that's in your subject matter. If you're about a particular game, then go find a fan page for that, a group for that game, and see if
just about that game.
Yeah, because that's your audience. It's people who would be interested in your content anyways. That's sort of one group of Facebook groups. The other category of Facebook groups is for content creators like us. And that's not the best place to find an audience. You probably can here and there. I found some fantastic people in the group that I've subscribed to and I watch, but not very many, to be fairly honest.
Yeah.
But there's some fantastic people there, and I've learned a lot from these people. And so, sharing your videos, you can do it. It's fine. Don't expect huge view growth from that. In those kinds of
interaction of just link dropping and not even, like you said, is like writing a description and like no responses. That's what I see when I go to the group and you post the link, but don't expect interaction unless you're in an interactive post.
Yeah. Well, like, for example, you could have a hair care channel, which confuses me, but I'm not your audience.
Me neither.
I thought you might relate. And so some people get upset. They say, well, I've shared my link. Why am I not getting tons of views? And it's like, I don't think you got the full value, the best value of why you're here. You can get a bit of that, but the real value is learning from other people. and their experience, asking for advice. So there's so many things that there's certain like topics that do my heart good to see them happen. Like, if somebody posts a Q&A, I want to do a Q&A, but I only have 100 subscribers, so I'm not getting questions from my audience. Can you give me questions to answer? We're happy to help. We're great for that. We don't have to know your channel to do that. Or you can tell us a bit about your channel, and then we can tailor the question to the channel. I don't watch makeup channels for obvious reasons. And but if a makeup channel says, hey, I'm a makeup channel, I want to do a Q&A, what kind of questions? And they might give you a shout out for your channel. They might not. Don't do it for the shout out. Do it because it's a good thing to do, is my advice. But I try to make it in line with my channel. So I say, okay, how much makeup do you take on vacation? How much makeup is too much makeup to take on vacation? I don't necessarily care. Some of my audience might find it useful. Friends of mine might find it useful. So those sorts of things. Often people will come into the group and they would have just lost their channel. And that breaks my heart until I find out why. Because they come in and they're just like, all I was doing sub for sub and like buying subscribers and views. Why did I lose my channel? I'm like,
the worst ideas.
You violated the basic terms of service for the platform. You were cheating where the rest of us are working hard. And so my sympathy is now evaporated. But here's an opportunity for me to maybe explain it. Here's why here's why it's considered cheating. Here's why they do that. If you want to start again, if you still have those videos and want to upload them again under a new channel or something, which is not technically following the rules, but I believe in second chances, maybe we can give an opportunity to help educate that person. And and that feels good. And then you never know when maybe you'll collab with that person, or they might give you a shout out. They might be a fan, or maybe not. And it's just like good karma. And being positive in the community. So those are very useful. And then other people come in and they're like, we had one just the other day. Guy comes in and says, I lost my channel for no reason, and it's never no reason. Not with YouTube, almost never. And so I'm like, send me put up a screenshot of the message that said you were losing your channel, and it said that he was improperly using tags because they were misleading. I said, what kind of videos do you do? He goes, oh, video game. Okay, cool. What kind of tags did you use? He goes, whatever is trending. And I'm like, well, that's what happened.
That's why, yeah.
You used a tag that was misleading. You lied to your audience. Don't lie to your audience, and this won't happen again. And he actually took it pretty well. And he was like, oh, I didn't realize. And some of these people, they're young. Not that the age matters, but they might have not read the terms of service. I mean, when I first joined, I didn't, because it's hard to know what's important, right? Like it's the longest essay you would have ever read in your life. So which parts are important? Our group is helpful for identifying that. I think is one of those things. So it's interesting. And so I watch when those sorts of things happen. We had a guy the other day, my heart goes out to him. He says that he's not getting many subscribers and views, and it's giving him depression. And so I kind of took some time to talk to this guy, and I was basically saying, like, if you give those numbers so much power over your life, then you're giving over control of your life to this audience that doesn't know you. And so I was saying, like, try to find other ways of enjoying it. If you do enjoy YouTube, do it for you. That's always my advice, is do it because you can't not. I think, like, when we get people in the group and they say, I don't know what kind of video to make today, I'm like, just stop right now, please. Because whatever you're going to make is not for the right reason. It's not coming from who you are or your passion. It's like you're going through somebody else's checklist. So I'm like, take a break, do something else, play a video game, go on vacation, go for a walk, exercise, focus on your work, your school, whatever, for a little bit until you can't not. You can't you can't stop thinking about a video you want to film. You can't stop thinking about your YouTube channel. That's the time to create. That's when the passion is at its best. And that's one of the reasons why I don't believe in content schedules. If I have to make something every Tuesday and Thursday, and I have the flu on a Tuesday, or I just have a month where I'm busy with work or something else, the day job, if you force it, it won't be good. And it's interesting because some of the people who are sort of experienced in content creation and advising content creators are starting to say similar things. I saw a video from Roberto Blake just recently where, or actually I think it was like a year ago. I've only recently discovered him, so I'm like going through his back catalog. And one of his videos, he says, I'm no longer having an upload schedule. And he said that, one of the reasons was because now you have to keep an eye. Because if you know that only my Friday videos are the ones you want to watch, then you're only watching my Friday videos. But if you don't know what the next video is going to be, you got to keep an eye all the time. And
so you have people chopping at the bit, like, okay, I want to watch the next video. When is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a nice way of putting it. And also, it's just, you got to do it. I think, like, you can try to game the algorithm, and there's a lot of ways you can do that. You can use TubeBuddy and all these different things, figure out your best upload time, stuff like that. That's fine. But if gaming the algorithm is driving your content, then I can't imagine the content's going to be that great.
Right,
because it's a computer program that you don't fully understand that's pushing your decision making.
And it's ever evolving too.
Yeah, and how does that make you anything less than subservient to the computer and just an echo of the computer? It's like, no, you got to be original. You got to do your own thing. And so I could be wrong about this. My channel growth has been slow, but that's the approach I've been taking.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that entirety of like the Facebook groups is a great explanation of what it is. So like when I found the groups, like I wish I found it earlier in my like quote unquote YouTube career, because I was naturally growing, just letting it like by itself, just letting it grow. And until like a year and a half ago, when I found these groups, that I grew like exponentially. And it wasn't the fact that like I was doing stuff for sub or anything. It's just I found the people that were interested in the stuff that I was doing, and vice versa. I found people that I was interested in what they were doing. So like we were finding each other, and that like I think that's, for me, that's what the groups is great about. And then at the same time, like you said, is the whole sub for sub like posts and why am I not growing, and you know what video should I do? I'm like, okay, well I'm gonna bypass those posts and just find posts that are that I'm interested in engaging with, and that's what I love about these groups. So like I like, you know, just to continue on what the advice was from last episode is, find those people, you know, if you're in those groups, you know, make sure you read the rules and just, you know, be able to find those people that are, you know, are interested in like what you're doing and what they're doing, you know, that interests you. So like, yeah, okay. So let's move on to the advice part. Like what sort of advice in your, like your YouTube like process and experience up to this point, like what sort of advice would you give them?
Oh, there's so much I've learned. You know, it's funny. I've learned probably like 90% of what I know right now about YouTube from these groups. And sometimes it's just watching other people make mistakes. They say that you learn from a mistake, not from a success. I'm trying to learn from other people's mistakes, save myself the stumble. Exactly. You know, I'll give you one concrete thing for people who want to be doing better on YouTube. It's a theory I've had. Every now and then in Small YouTubers Boost, when I have a day to kill in a hotel, I'll do a live stream of channel reviews. And one of the things that I'm constantly telling people is what I call keyword alignment. So here's a very practical thing you can do to make your channel better. You want to have the same keywords in your title, in your description, in your meta tags, and spoken out loud in the video. Right. And that's when the magic starts to happen in terms of suggested and doing well in search. Right. And so whether or not you caption your videos, and do caption your videos, it's tedious, but it helps. YouTube knows the words you're speaking fairly well. Sometimes the auto captioning can be really funny, and it's like, okay, I didn't say that word. Oh my God. And so there's that, but it knows what you're saying. So if you are talking constantly about video games and you tag it about, you know, Mexico, they're going to know that there's a disconnect, and that's going to hurt you in the algorithm. But if I'm talking about Cozumel and I put the word Cozumel in the title, in the description, and in the meta tags, and then also if the comment conversation uses that word as well, YouTube wants to know what your video is about. And so it's looking for all the signs that it possibly can to figure out what you're about. Are you misrepresenting yourself? Are you about this? Are you about that? And how can we serve the best videos to the audience? People say, oh, YouTube isn't supporting me and all this kind of stuff. YouTube wants everyone to be successful because that makes them more successful.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not a person. There's no person behind there twirling a mustache saying, oh, Bob's not going to be a success today. I don't like Bob. It doesn't work that way. It's all algorithms. And so you got to work with it instead of fighting it in that regard. And so I call it keyword alignment. Make sure that the same word, at least one word, every video that is said out loud appears in your title, description, and tags. Then YouTube will know this video has a high probability of being about that word. And that, I think, is how you make the magic happen. If you want something super practical as a tip for a YouTuber.
That is a great piece of advice. Yeah, I mean, I other than like what I just mentioned before about the YouTube groups, yeah, I don't have anything else to top that, or just even on that same level. That is great advice. Thank you. Now I'm gonna take that into consideration for my stuff as well, since I cover different things. Actually, one last thing when it comes to your channel. I noticed, like, I know your focus is on like vacationing, but I do see different types of videos. Are you in the belief, of like keeping to the same like exact thing that for your channel, like niche wise, or just like kind of variation of videos in terms of like, it could relate to your niche or your focus, but like be something different that rather than the usual same like vacation type video?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's hard to know. And it also depends on your platform. We're on a variety of social media platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And so an example of at best tangentially related to vacation video we do is we support the Mario Marathon.
Yeah.
So this is in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's a bunch of guys in their 30s. For the last 2 years, I've been invited to actually go out and participate. They play Mario games for a weekend and raise money for Child's Play charity. Mm-hmm. And so the first year I went out there, which was last year, we raised $75,000. This year was just a weekend, so I think we did 30-odd thousand. And so that's for children in hospital, and I feel very passionately about supporting that charity. Yeah. And so I would like to think that my audience would understand, if there's the odd video about that, it's for a good cause we're passionate about. And yeah, I do travel to go be on the show, so maybe I can kind of justify it that way.
Yeah, for sure.
But different. And so the first time I was invited was last year. I'd been supporting it for 8 years, and they finally said, "Hey, come be on the show." It's like, yes. And it was an amazing experience. But one of the things I thought is, okay, got to be practical. Let's see what my appearance on the show does for my channel. Mm-hmm. So before I went for this, you could call it a collab, I guess, I basically took a snapshot of all my social media. How many followers on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. And then when I came back, I tried to measure if there was an increase based on the exposure. And I was sharing things on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter about the event as well. And this is what I learned. I got a little bit of growth on all social media platforms from that exposure, just because more people knew who I was. Yeah. And maybe there was a cross-section of people who support that charity, and then the people who go on vacations and want to watch my videos. That was minimal. We're talking 2 to 4% growth. That's okay. I'll take it, especially because I was doing what I love to support a charity I care about. Right. But Instagram was the exception. My Instagram following fell apart. So I think my theory is that on most social media platforms, people are willing to accept the odd step outside of your niche, but Instagram is not. If you go off brand on Instagram, you will be punished. Now, that's just my experience. I could be wrong, but I think that's the one exception. So if you want to do the odd, video or whatever, one thing that's really important for content creators on YouTube is the subscriber tab in your analytics. And you can see when people unsubscribe now, it was an update they did a few months ago. You can see what video they were on when they clicked unsubscribe, if they were on a video when they unsubscribed. Hugely useful information. So like there are we're an ensemble show. I've got a lot of people on my sort of part of the cast. And so they all film things independently, and that gives us some different perspectives, which is fantastic. But like there was a video that one of our younger members filmed. And so I think he was 9 or 10 at the time, and he was just filming some water slides on a cruise ship. Mm-hmm. But he's not very experienced with the camera, no public speaking experience, not great, that sort of thing. And he was thinking about the YouTubers that he wanted to be like, Dan TDM or something like that. And so the way that he presented himself didn't seem to land with our audience. And so that one video has only cost us subscribers. We have never gained. And so that taught me that, okay, maybe when, he wants to do an episode, I'll need to come along to kind of help with the camera stuff. Yeah, and keep it a little bit, more on brand. Okay. And then there are the controversial videos where I got kicked off some rides at a Six Flags. I had an issue with a spa on a cruise ship. There was an issue. A member in our group is a shareholder for a company, and the company didn't treat them well as a shareholder. And so these things where we're exposing things that didn't go quite right, that we tend to lose subscribers on, but we also gain more than we lose. Right. So if I'm gaining 6 and losing 3 in a month on one of those sorts of videos, that tells me something. I'm not sure exactly what it's saying, but that's that. But then you also have a video that's purely informational. We have a video that's done very well, how to dress for Alaska. It's gotten 40,000 odd views. It's gotten us tons of subscribers, lots of likes. That sort of thing is all gravy. So that kind of stuff can really give people information, is look at that subscriber thing to see, and so if you want to experiment a little, let's say that you're a Let's player and you're constantly just playing a game, and you're like, what, I want to review the new Spider-Man game that just came out. And I want to do a funny scripted review like Pat Contry or something. And you try it and then you upload it. You let it sit there for a while and do its thing. And after about 4 weeks, you've got some data. Go in and look at the subscriber tab, for example. Is it costing you? Is it gaining? Is there a mix, but a net gain? And I think that's how you can do a toe in the water test. Like, we've done the odd movie review because one of the members of our group was part of the sci-fi movie podcast. And so I'm like, oh, hey, he's here. Let's ask him about this new sci-fi movie, Rogue One or whatever. And so I looked at the analytics, because that's stepping outside of our vacation boundary. And very few people watched. The retention was pretty poor. Nobody subscribed, but nobody unsubscribed. Nobody liked, nobody disliked. It was like, that fell flat. So it's like, we're probably not going to do any more movie reviews. I will happily guest on somebody else's channel, but I don't think it's appropriate for my channel. And so the analytics have taught me that. So people think that there's a rule, like, you know, oh, you have to stay in your lane or only do this or that. Beware of those sorts of rules. Feel free to experiment, but just do one. Give it some time, look at the data, and see how your audience responds. They might love it. That could be your new direction. You got to be willing to evolve. Because our podcast clips, I didn't want to initially start a podcast, and now that Alaska video was a podcast clip, and it's done exceptionally well. And that's one of the things. We wanted to provide information, but we're having so much fun we forget to talk about it. I went to Rome years ago, and through my research and stuff, I know a way that you can bypass almost all the lineups in Rome. And it saves tons of time and tons of money. And we filmed us doing it, and we never explained how. So, and people were watching it. And I'm like, why aren't people watching it? And so, but now the podcast is great because that gives us that opportunity to sit down and reflect and say, here's the things that you might want to know about. And we can talk about it intelligently, give people tips. So I would say don't be afraid to experiment, but do it gradually. Don't go whole hog. And then see how your audience responds. And you can do it without having them comment, because that can be very hard, especially for smaller YouTubers. I ask them all the time, what do you think of this? What should we do that? I get crickets in the comment section. But your analytics, that can really help quite a bit.
Yeah, that I can kind of backpack behind what you were just mentioning in terms of the analytics. Like, analytics can be a huge undertaking if you just don't see what you're looking at. So you do have to take your time just to look at every single aspect of the analytics. Like, you know, what does real time look like in terms of this video, or like subscriber count? The new thing that you talking about of when like the actual like person unsubscribed on which particular video. That's awesome to know about that sort of thing. So like, take some time. I would say, like, I guess that would be my piece of advice, just stemming from what Ray was just saying. Like, take some time to look at your analytics and study it, and just like understand it on your own. Because like, nobody, I mean, unless you're asking people and then you're correlating what they're describing to what you're seeing, you have to look at it yourself and just get into like a deep dive and just, okay, so that's what that means. That's what that means. Like, I would say just take a deep dive into your analytics and just try to understand as much of it as best as possible, so you can understand how your channel is, like, you know, reacting or evolving, or like just anything that's revolving around the channel, you know, growing or not, it's all going to be in your analytics. So like, that's a great piece of advice that came from Ray. And hey, I'm going to backpack from that. So Ray,
actually, if I could just tag one little thing onto that, one thing I'd say, especially for newer content creators, is don't be intimidated by your analytics. YouTube's been around for like 12 years or longer, and so they've built tons of tools for different people. And so when you look at it, it can be really intimidating. You might want to try to go bite-sized. Just look at, you know, a bit and try to understand that, and then look at the next bit. Don't feel like you have to suddenly get it all. And if you run into something that confuses you, that's when a Facebook group can be super useful. Come on down to Small YouTubers Boost and, you know, post a screenshot or something. Don't show your income, because that's against the AdSense rules. But anything else in your analytics, you can screenshot and put in the group and ask for some feedback, and we might be able to help explain it. Or we might just say, like, you know what? Yeah, audiences are sometimes confusing, and that doesn't make sense to us either. And so your confusion is justified. Don't be intimidated by the analytics. Take it bite size if that's what works better for you.
That's actually even better advice. Take it bite size rather than like just look at it like your lifetime like analytics, rather than just take a look at the last like 60 minutes. Take a look at the last 48 hours, that sort of thing, and just grow from there. But okay, awesome. Yeah, Ray, where can people find you? What is your channel? Again, what is your channel name? Where can people find you? And what are all sorts of social media are you found at?
Yeah, so we're Vacation Impossible. You can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/Vacation Impossible. We're on all sorts of social media. We're on Instagram as Vacation Impossible. We've got a Facebook page you can like, facebook.com/Vacation Impossible. We've got a Tumblr, vacationimpossible.tumblr.com. We're on Flickr. We're everywhere. We're on places where I'm starting to wonder why we're on these places. We're having some growth. Pinterest is growing for us, surprisingly. I don't fully understand it yet. I have a Snapchat. I don't know how to use it. So we're Vacation Impossible pretty much everywhere except Twitter, because Twitter has a character limit on the handle. So we're Vacay Impossible on Twitter. And we also have the Vacation Impossible podcast, which you can find on your platform of choice for podcasts. So Stitcher, iTunes, we're on Spotify, Podbean, you name it, we're probably there. I think the only exception is iHeartRadio, because you have to pay to get onto their index, and I don't want to do that. That's pay to play seems wrong. But we're on everywhere but that. So if you've got an app or whatever for podcasts, feel free to check us out. And we're even on some new stuff that, like, there's a new social media platform that's beginning called Vero. It's spelled Vero, and it's supposed to be a pay to get on board. But they had a promotion where they're trying to build their user base. They said, "Oh, you can join for free for life." And so I said, "Sure, I'll just camp on the username." But I went and I looked, and it's like musicians and companies and stuff are there. And they're investing time in that platform. And I don't know what it means, but if you have the opportunity to join for free, or you can afford to join, a lot of celebrities and companies seem to think that there's something there. And so that's one that I'm kind of keeping an eye on as maybe the next thing. I don't know. It's just a theory.
Okay. So they're trying to find like their identity in a sense?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Or they're I don't quite grasp it yet. I've shared a couple things. Nobody's following me on Vero, so feel free to be the first. But I saw that companies and celebrities like Ariana Grande and other people were investing a lot of time in building their following there. And so, you see that the people who look at the bottom line are investing in something, and kind of like they must see something there. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm gonna make sure nobody takes my username.
Yeah, I did the same thing. So, but like it's just sitting there now. But yeah, I need to take a look back at what Vero's doing, at least nowadays, because it's been a good while. But Ray, dude, thank you very much for just being on this show and just explaining the ins and outs of your channel and telling us your story and the groups and stuff that you've been doing. A lot of great advice in this episode. Thank you for being on this show. I would love to have you back again for another episode whenever in the near future. Thank you, dude.
Absolutely. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, and I wish you all the success on this new podcast. You seem to have a good, strong start, so keep it up.
Yeah, appreciate it. So, guys, where to find me is Nerd in the Bay everywhere: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I try to you're everywhere. I'm trying to think where am I still? So yeah, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. There goes the dog turning over. So I'm everywhere basically. Just type in Nerd in the Bay, and then that's where you'll find me. Guys, thank you very much for watching or listening to the show, however you're doing this. Tune in for episode 4. We don't know when that's going to be. You're going to look for the next guest, but Ray is a great guest to be on any sort of podcast. As I'm here doing this show. So thank you guys very much for watching and listening. We'll see you guys next time for the next episode. And take care. Have a great weekend. I'll see you guys next time. Peace, guys.